Lana Del Rey, Chemtrails Over the Country Club album review. Let's chat about it. Lana Del Rey, singer-songwriter. She's been a polarizing figure over the years, but has always been just a real guilty pleasure of mine too. One of my favorite artists. Her 2012 debut album, Born to Die, it absolutely deserves a lot of the criticisms this album has gotten. It's super cheesy. It hasn't exactly aged well either. But for me, it's always been a guilty pleasure for what it's worth, as is its follow-up, Ultraviolence. I mean, in parts, it seemed tasteful to me. It showed her incorporating more rock elements. Like, I thought Cruel World was really cool, as well as the title track. But then we got tracks like Brooklyn Baby, who should never have seen the light of day. Call me crazy. Ever since 2015's Honeymoon, I feel like Lana has come into her own more and more with each release, and has become actually a real one of my favorites. This album, tracks like Religion and Music to Watch Boys To, and the title track Honeymoon were some of her best to date. It made a lot of her early work seem totally amateurish. Lust for Life, I thought, was awesome, and it ended up being one of my favorite albums of the year. She, before my eyes, was becoming the songwriter that I really always wanted her to be. And with her last album, 2019's NFR, she cemented this. She had become one of the best living singer-songwriters in modern music. Now, this album was pushed back and heavily delayed, and it's something that I didn't hear a lot going into this, as far as singles go, at least. And she dropped like one or two, but we haven't heard much leading up to this album, at least not in studio. And here it is. It's finally here. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with White Dress, and I'm just going to say it. I genuinely think this is one of the best tracks she's ever wrote. When you take a look at her vocals here, compared to the lackadaisical, dreamy, sort of alt hip-hop days of Born to Die, you can't even compare it. But this track is just making me tear up, man, every time. Not only that, but I love that with each release, we learn more and more about Lana Del Rey as a person and what she was like before she, started releasing music. We got a whole lot more of that here. I don't know what it is about this track, but it is just hitting me so hard. She talks a lot about fame here. Spoiler alert, a lot of this album, she does talk about fame. Mostly, her life before it. Overall, I think this is just an awesome track. Then we have the title track here, Chemtrails Over the Country Club. And honestly, this track has done nothing but grow on me since its release. I mean, I hate to continue to bring up the early days of Lana Del Rey where she was a whole lot more polarizing. But the reality is, since then, she has grown by leaps and bounds as a songwriter, especially, writing these incredibly visual tracks, and that's exactly what this is. I love how surreal and dreamlike this one is. That, matched up with just how intense this one lyrically gets at times, packs quite a punch. Also, nostalgia really continues to be a major theme of this album. The genuinely masterful songwriting continues with Tulsa, Jesus Freak. This one, I feel like, just has so many layers as far as lyrical themes go. I feel like you can chat about this one for easily an hour. Between religion and the steamy underbelly here, between the faith and desire of other parts of this track, there's so much going on. Now, I will say this, a lot of the tracks on this album, I feel like you need to sit with them, let them grow on you a little bit. There's a lot happening at once. But this is just another really great track. Even if I might be in the minority here thinking that White Hot Forever was the original title of this track, and a better one at that. Lana just seems to continue to grow and evolve. Now, while overall I do really like this album, I don't think this is as good as her last album, not even close, and I think that this maybe could have been tweaked just a little bit at points. Wild at Heart, I do like parts of. As a matter of fact, as far as her vocals go, there's nothing wrong here. As a matter of fact, I like the vocals here a lot. Sadly, though, it's one of my least favorite tracks here. It's a fine ballad that once again shows a whole lot more about who Lana is. And that's great, but I personally think she has done this so much better in the past. It's not a complete write-off, though, but Dark But Just a Game is my least favorite track here. Once again, this is tough for me because I think a lot of the lyrics here, diving into fame and who you really are pretty interesting. But instrumentally, compared to other tracks here, this is such a slog. And personally, this might just be me, but vocal-wise, this is my least favorite track here. I feel like she had the right idea here, but this is just something that she could have repackaged and done a much more mature way and really done it a lot better. But the rest of the album kind of goes in between alright and really good. Let Me Love You Like a Woman, ever since it was dropped a while back, has just kind of been average to me. It's still very average. This actually sounds like an NFR leftover. But I will say this, while lyrically this is probably one of my least favorite tracks here, her vocal performance does win most of this track over for me. It is just so passionate, especially in the final minute. But I think there are a whole lot bigger and bolder statements on here. Take, for example, Not All Who Wander Are Lost. Lyrically, this is one of the most universally understandable tracks here, one that you really don't have to dig very deep into. But I think that's actually a welcome change. A lot of this track are things that so many of us have felt. And usually this ultra soft, practically folk approach to Lana's music, honestly in the past it's been some of my least favorite tracks of hers. It were the few tracks on NFR that I really wasn't that into. But this is really lovely little introspective track. Yosemite is absolutely one of my favorite tracks here. Love how rustic and dusty this comes off. As far as that folk sound that Lana has been toying with here, this is a real great sound. It's mysterious, and honestly, she sounds like a freaking badass here. It also offers a really interesting analysis on relationships, in particular some of the stronger ones. Breaking Up Slowly featuring Nikki Lane, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. This is a broken down, emotional as hell, bluesy jam that really took me off guard. Said this one features Nikki Lane, whose incredible vocals start this track off, and she just sounds like this is tearing her apart, and it is awesome. And Lana's very dreamy vocals offer a really good contrast. This one is painfully real, super tragic, and once again, on the more relatable side, I want to say. I will say this, though, I'm not crazy about Dance Till We Die. It's a little uneventful, and it's packed with a lot of cheesy references. Like, I feel like this would have shown up on maybe Ultraviolet and had people up in arms over Lana. There are a few sweet moments on here, but nothing she hasn't done better on earlier tracks. But Lana does really knock it out of the park with its finale here. This Joni Mitchell cover of For Free featuring Zella Day and Wise Blood. Like I said, these super soft, folky tracks from Lana are usually not my cup of tea. But this is a gorgeous, heartfelt, respectable cover all around. These three ladies, all the vocal performances on this track, just awesome. So much so that it gives me hope for the future of this sort of country-tinged folk sound from Lana. If she give us more material like this, I would be absolutely up for sitting through an entire album like that. This is a very solid release. I don't think it's the gut punch, the lyrical and just metamorphosis gut punch of her last album, NFR, but I don't think it really needed to be. She continues to pen some of her best material here. Some of the tracks on there are some of her most introspective and relatable to date, and I genuinely love that. And yeah, I still think she has some figuring out to do, especially with the folkier moments on here. Some of them are a little uneventful, but she's onto something. Yeah, I like this. This is certainly a very viable, very good Lana Del Rey album. I'm feeling a very light 8 on this thing, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.